Hello, everyone, and welcome to Contemporary Art Taos 2020, the Artist Interview Series. This series consists of short interviews with the artists in our exhibition that'll take place twice a month over the duration of Contemporary Art Taos 2020. We're trying a slightly different format today with the split screen with our artist, Dean Pulver, so please let us know how it's going. We always want to hear your feedback about the sound and video quality of you watching these interviews. So let's get this one started. Let's welcome our artist today, Dean Pulver.
Hello there. Nice to see you, Nicole, and everybody who's here to...
Hey, Dean, how you doing?
Very good. Thank you very much. Thrilled to be here and be part of the exhibition.
Thanks for joining us. So let's jump right into questions. So one of the things that seems to strike everyone first about your work, like the work behind me, 2020, which is part of the exhibition, is the seemingly impossible way that you manipulate your wood medium. Can you tell us about your process and specifically your process for 2020?
Well, yes. So it was very important to me to become masterful in a medium. So many years ago, I decided to devote myself to understanding all the techniques of woodworking. And within that array of various techniques used through the years, there's been a way of building form, not so standard, straight, linear. You know, you see a lot of, in the furniture world, at least, you see a lot of linear work. And in this, maybe in the sculpture world, you see more forming, shaping, and sculpting. I was interested in more of a hybrid approach to develop forms, support the ideas that I have. I generally come up with an idea first, then try to develop the technique to support what I'm after. So in this piece, since it's more of a rounded, organic form, some of these linear processes on table saws such are not really proper because it's hard to get such a nice, rich, moving form. So I decided on this piece specifically to use a technique called coopering. And there used to be traditionally coopers who made barrels. So if you think about barrels, there are all these different facets, planes that are curved that come together. So I found it would be very interesting, instead of keeping to a standard barrel form, but take advantage of how you can get bulbous shapes to use it to move into more of a sculptural format. So this piece uses that technique, and it's a little hard to understand, but let's say if you look down at the end of one of the forms on the wall of my piece, you would actually see it cut into pie shapes from the top. And as you stretch the whole thing out, you'll have all these pie shapes that are really long extended pieces. So you can actually cut out almost any form you'd like out of that long pie shape, and then put all those onion pieces or orange pieces together, pie pieces, and then you end up creating a form. So in this piece, even though it may look like there's bending going on, it's actually a lot of bandsaw work and assembly around a form. So as I said, using traditional techniques, but trying to reinvent them into having different expressions that maybe people are used to with woodworking in general.
That's fascinating. And everyone really has to come in and see this. You know, there's something about seeing the wood move this way in person that gives you that uncanny feeling that I think.
Yes, I guess one thing that'd be important to say is once you see the piece, you know, it looks like very big solid forms, but they're actually hollow forms. So it's all these layers that are only about a ½ inch thick coming together. So yes, there's some wonderful discoveries, which I really appreciate. You know, when you come to see a work of art, what do you see and get impressed by from a distance? But then what's that new discovery when you come close and really start to observe? And if you spend time with a piece, what do you learn? It's like spending time with a person. What do you really learn if you actually listen to them and really pay attention?
Absolutely. So there's all of these elemental sort of essential references in your work that you make. A lot of your sculptures feel very anthropomorphic and also resemble tools or mathematical symbols, like an abacus grid. Is that tension between the natural and the rational something that you're interested in exploring?
Very much. I'm really interested in this expression of what are we as humans, and what is really common for all of us. So, moving back to some things that are really elemental, forms, movements, transitions that we all can kind of relate to, is really part of us. But we are also these humans that went through this cognitive revolution to start to understand ourselves and our place with others. So really, to bring these pieces alive, I feel that combination of what's organic, real, and what's thought process. How do we divide things? How do we understand structure? And how did we become these so-called advanced people? So yes, that tension between the two, I think, is very much what it is about to be human, and that human experience, and dancing between what is your maybe gut response and what is, maybe process thought, and where do the two come together to make us. So I guess that's part of making a piece alive. And I guess it becomes somewhat of a self-portrait too, because it speaks about how I see things. But it's really about giving the piece richness and depth. So it's not just like a one-liner that there's, like I said, when you experience it, you can kind of build a relationship with it, hopefully.
I just read Frankenstein to get ready for a digital landscape show that we're doing, portraying nature. And I didn't really think about it in relation to your work until just now, but Frankenstein maybe could.
Thinking of Frankenstein, great.
So woodworking is a medium that's deeply intertwined with the history of craft and utility design, like you mentioned earlier. So how are you negotiating that sort of intrinsic relationship whenever you're creating these fine art pieces?
I think that can be really used as a visual tool, once again, to invite relationships to the piece. As you said, like they have some relationships of tools to tools. So this kind of attraction to interact and touch, or history or memory of working with tools. Science, like you said, the mental processes, we've all been through school and seen plenty of these pictures of geometries and things. So I think it's really kind of reaching down to those basics of what's in our collective memory and commonality, to touch on those things. So I guess I'm trying to kind of challenge both sides, or touch on both sides of woodworking being used as a sculptural, symbolic thing, African art, also richness of furniture, different sculptors. So what is that dance between the two? Because I have a lot of issues about this division of craft and fine art, and really don't think it's kind of, doesn't make sense to me.
I think it doesn't. I think a lot of that bias is really grounded in, or is grounded in some bias we have that's based on socioeconomic status, that craftspeople's work wasn't as important as oil painting, or these really esteemed practices. But
it's a newer evolution too. I mean, if you think back, really, I mean, there was a time where all of a sudden we separated the two. If you think about the history of craft and art, I mean, way back, I mean, these objects, of like tribal objects, they were art and life and living. It was such a part of your life. So this division of the two, I think, has been a bit at fault to us. But, hopefully we're learning, and because, they're both so rich. They both fulfill so many areas and history in us. So I try to very freely kind of move back and forth depending on what I'm trying to express.
That's great. I think it gives you a lot of power use that that familiarity and that tool that we sort of know and live with. Linear qualities, almost like they're line drawings that you turned into wood. Is that part of your process whenever you're planning or creating new work?
So yeah, that's interesting. So, you know, as a lot of artists do, we go to museums a lot and look, and I find myself really, really enjoying sketches. You know, the early development of these ideas, and using a pencil to draw is just like a really wonderful way to initially imprint ideas. And as I said, working in the furniture field for a long time and working with sculpture, I've really wanted to bring that mark making and sketch. Oops. Sorry, I lost you for a second.
Show us that.
Yes. So we were talking about the sketching. So yes, I use the drawing from beginning to end. In the beginning, to just do little thumbnails to give impressions of an idea, but then all the way through the process, like first stage is usually taking a piece of wood, sketching things on it freely. I usually don't use a lot of measuring tools or compasses, trying to have that organic, loose feeling to it. And then I start doing things like three-dimensional sketches. So instead of drawing with a pencil line, I may be drawing with a bandsaw or some other tool, but same thing. It's almost a way to sketch into 3 dimensions. And then if you actually look at some of my finished pieces, such as the show upstairs, the Elemental Resonance show, a lot of the finished pieces still have a lot of the mark making. And I feel like that adds a lot of richness because it kind of shows process, direction, thought, back and forth, you know, this conversation, decision making, and the reality of a piece coming to life. That most often it's not just a clear vision in your head. You're searching and going back and forth. So this idea, it's a sketch till the end somewhat, is really wonderful to me because it adds a certain life to it. You know, sometimes when pieces are finished, they're too finished. Sometimes they die. So this idea of the sketch and movement and transition, I really love.
I have to say, you're the first person I've ever heard say sketch with a bandsaw. I think that's a new practice. A lot of people.
Yeah, well, you got to be careful sketching with a bandsaw. So it's a sharper than a pencil.
I bet. I have a couple more questions left, and we'll wrap it up.
Okay.
So you also teach woodworking, and you've done so at a lot of prestigious institutions like Anderson Ranch and Penland. What's one lesson that you always try to teach all of your students or impart?
Well, you know, it's interesting. The classes I usually have some basis in technique and some basis in process and idea development. But, you know, the greatest lesson to me is teaching people that persistence pays off and passion shows. So when they're making, it's so much about giving yourself fully to the piece, be committed to it, and give yourself all to it. Because if you don't give it that, it's kind of nothing. It has no life to it. So passion.
A great lesson. And the last question that I'm asking everyone, so this exhibition was limited to artists from Taos or with deep roots in Taos. Can you tell us about your relationship to Taos?
So I've been here 25 years now. I moved here with my wife, Abby Salsbury, who is an artist, also a printmaker and ceramic artist. So been very fortunate. We graduated from Philadelphia College of Art and lived in both our home states, Minnesota and Massachusetts, but we kind of knew it wasn't the right place. We wanted some place we really felt at home and had the community and that we could build our houses and studios. So I had a job at Anderson Ranch Art Center for a summer, being a summer assistant. And that kind of was what moved us away from our homes on the East Coast and Midwest. And we met a fellow, Seth Rowland, who was a furniture maker, that he started telling us about Taos and building this earth ship and how manageable, and that people like us who had not much money at the time could do it. So we jumped in our Volkswagen bus with our yellow lab and $300 in our pocket and showed up in Taos. And, and, we thought it was going to be a temporary thing, but the love for Taos and the understanding of how extraordinary it is and how it opened us up. I mean, I'm sure most of us all here that are here in Taos understand that this landscape is just stunning, and it's so vast, and it opens you up. It also kind of brings you down to your mind, and it's just so raw and real. So this is the first place we felt really at home, and that we can make our lives, and that there are so many other people that were very real and interested in real stuff. So Taos is, yes, very deep in our hearts and has very much influenced my work very strongly.
That's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. And we're going to talk about that VW bus later. I have a 78 transporter.
Excellent.
Thank you, Dean, so much for joining us. And thank you to everyone for watching. Please stay tuned. Our next interview will be with the great Brian Shields on October 14th. Have a good day, everyone.
Thank you, everybody. Take care. Bye-bye.